Hey guys. Oh, 7 seconds in and I'm still figuring this out. Sorry, I'm a little slow on the uptake here. Um, Rotate device. Why is it telling me to rotate the device? No, I don't want it this way. Oh, you. Hey guys. Kevin Cleary here with a quick video. Now it's not letting me hold the phone quite the way I want to, so bear with me for a second as I rearrange this frame just a little bit. Let's see, let's get this guy open. I'm gonna have to be thinking about this all the time. Let me change the lighting situation a little. Okay, there we go. I think we got the lighting under control. Is everyone able to hear me okay? Someone just give me a thumbs up or a comment or something. Last time I tried this, I wasn't coming through, but I'm in a spot that I think has fast enough internet to do what I want to do. So perfect. Everyone can hear me. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, now let's go ahead. I want to do this video in a fun way, and this kind of comes from when you see the shows where they're shopping for a new home, and they have this list of demands, and they say, you know, I need to have, you know, so many bedrooms and so many bathrooms, and I've got to have this location and this view and all of that. And so what I thought is, you know, and I get a lot of questions from you guys saying, you know, Kevin, I want a knife with this list of demands. And you've got, you know, it has to be a certain size, it has to be a certain weight, you want a certain blade steel, a certain type of lock. And so what I wanted to do is kind of go through a number of different knives and a number of different knife categories and say, hey, given this list of demands, what kind of price point am I going to be looking at? Trying to get the other knives off the screen. There we go. So let's go ahead and start with some of the things that people will often say to me. One, steel is always a big one. They'll say, hey, I want a knife with fill in the blank steel. And maybe they've heard me talk about it or another YouTuber. Maybe they've experienced it in one knife and they say, I really love it. I want another knife with that steel. So I've got this knife here for a very specific reason, and that is the fact that it has D2. And that's the steel. I'm going to use that as an example because to me, D2 is sort of that first step out of the budget steels where you've got, you know, 14C28N is sort of borderline. Everything under that, you know, the Chinese alphabet steels, 8CR13 MOV and 9CR14 MOV, and those steels, I'm going to call those budget steels. And so to step outside of those budget steels, normally you're at around the $40 to $50 price range. This guy is a bit of an exception. There are a few out there in D2, like the SE Avispa, like the Rat 1, like I guess the Rat 2 as well. There's this knife. So there are some exceptions to the rule. These are fairly, you know, fairly budget friendly. But if you're going to say, you know, Kevin, I want a decent steel, okay, that's going to perform pretty well for me. Yeah, good point. Canadian Cutting Edge just said, yeah, there's Sandvik's 12C27 is a pretty good steel. And that's true as well. I like 14 C28N a little bit better. But, you know, let's move on and start talking about what are we going to, you know, what do we have to spend to start getting into, you know, an S30V or S35VN, CTSX HP, all of those types of steels. And I've got some examples here. Here's a pair of two. Now this is the S35VN, but let's just pretend it's S30V. We've got an American Lawman. We've got a Recon 1. What else have I got that's sort of that? I guess that's it for now. I'm not at my house, so I don't have as many steel knife examples as I normally would. But these are all good examples of knives that are actually in pretty high performance steels. Okay, this one maybe not so much, but these are all in pretty high performance steels, and yet they're not super expensive. Okay, this guy, you know, I think the S35VN para is maybe 140, and someone can go ahead and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it's that ballpark anyway. These two are, you know, under $100. And so, you know, this knife, super, super strong, you know, there you go. Super Steel's like a high capacity magazine. Nice. But yeah, a steel like this, and I would say cold steel is hardening their steel just a little bit softer. Hey, thanks for checking in. This is a bit new, guys, so bear with me, especially for those of you who watch this later, because I know I did YouTube on purpose. Hey, how's it going, Seven Ready? So I did this format on purpose. I know it saves the video. Please be kind, because this is a totally new thing for me. Anyway, so I've got these knives here, and all of these are in good steels, okay? These are what I would call good steels. I don't have a single complaint. And there are many others, okay, that we could list here. You know, we could put a Mannix here. We could put, you know, we could put other cold steels here. Lots of good options. Yeah, why vertical? For some reason, as soon as I flip the phone the other way, it gives me this weird error message. I'm going to try it one more time. If the whole thing craps out, guys, bear with me. But someone tell me if this is working. I'm getting an error message that says this is not right. So hopefully that's not the case, but it's telling me that I can't keep it this way. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so I'll keep it vertical. There we go. For some reason, my phone's brain can't deal with that. So let's call these knives, guys, our first sort of benchmark. All right, and in this benchmark, you're getting a pretty high level of quality. You're getting a decent steel. You're getting decent materials. You know, these are all G10. There's no FRN here. There's no Grivery here. And these guys are all, between $80 and $120. And so I would say, if we say like $100 is our first benchmark, you know, if you spend $100 on a knife, you should be able to expect a pretty high level of quality. Okay, you should be able to expect some pretty decent materials. You should be able to expect a decent steel, you know, good solid lockup, all that kind of stuff. So if your list of demands includes, hey, I want a decent steel that's going to hold an edge well, and I want something with good fit and finish, good level of quality, and I want something with a good solid lockup, I feel like $100, you know, give or take 20, should solidly get you into a knife that meets all those specifications. Okay, not really so much of a super steel here, but not bad. Okay, now if we want to step up from there, we get into an odd position. Okay, with Spyderco, you'd get into a lot of sprint runs. That's right, I should have taken a hostage before this video started. Anyway, list of demands means things that I want out of a knife. Okay, and so what I'm trying to do is say, hey, these are the demands. What money am I going to have to spend to get this? And I'm kind of comparing it to a car or a house, where you say, hey, if I want these options in my house, or I want these options on my car, what's the price point that I'm going to have to hit to get to that? So here we are coming back. I would say, you know, at $100, these are all in that ballpark. Oh, are you serious? I'm going to have to go and send a quick message to Nick and say I apologize. I thought he was done. I think I saw a notification about that, but that's okay. The video will be recorded for posterity, so I'll try not to embarrass myself too much while I'm doing this. So anyway, let's move on from our first benchmark. The $100 price point gets you something pretty decent, okay? And I think as a user, right, $100 is going to be pretty well where you're starting to max out. Okay, if someone calls me or messages me and they say, hey, I want a knife that I'm going to carry in my pocket all the time, and it's just got to be a good quality EDC knife, I'm going to almost always recommend something in around that $100 price point. Not because, you know, I'm being a snob, but because I feel like at that price, you're getting a knife that is going to last a long time, and it's going to do anything you could think of that you want it to do. And have a pretty good steel and pretty good level of quality and fit and finish. So let's move up a step. Now you say to me, hey, I want something a little bit special. I want something possibly that has a super steel. Okay. Yeah, Code 4 is absolutely amazing for $100. And I think you can even get it for less. So let's say you want to step up a little bit. And I'm thinking, let's bring the Para 2 back in here for a second. So this guy is a good example because this is a sprint run. And I think these guys go for about $140. Now that's pretty affordable for a Spyderco sprint run. Their number these days seems to be about $160. And it depends on the model, of course. So if you go for something, yeah, $65 for a Code 4 is amazing. And one of the best knives out there, all around knives. But yeah, so let's get back to this. So a Spyderco Sprint run in, the Para 2 or the Mannix or the military, they're going to be, 140, 160. Every once in a while, you're going to get one a little higher than that, but not that much. I know there are cheaper ones available, guys, like in the Delica, Endura, but we'd already kind of passed the Delica and Endura when with that previous sort of benchmark. Okay, so what if you say, okay, I want something more than this, right? I want something a little more special, a little more interesting. Maybe I want some higher end materials. And so let me grab a titanium frame lock. So here's a titanium frame lock. This is the Real Steel Megalodon. And this lands at a pretty good, I guess the retail price lands at a pretty good spot because these claim to, these retail for around $200. And at $200, there are quite a few pretty darn good titanium frame locks that you can get your hands on. Okay. Now I know, we're not quite to ZT territory yet, but we're almost there. But for example, I'm super stoked. Some of you have actually sent me messages about this because you know that I wanted one. The Kaiser Toro recently became available and it's like for $200. I'm like, dude, $200 for a Toro, that is awesome. So it's definitely on my short list. Want to pick one of those up. So hopefully you'll see a first impressions not too far in the future. But this guy also serves as a good example. Now, let me say this. Since we're talking about titanium frame locks, there are a couple, okay? The Maxpedition Excelsa I've reviewed it. It's a good knife, and I think they're around 115 bucks. The Ontario Cerberus is another one that I've reviewed. Now, it's Teflon washers, and I think both of those might be Teflon washers, so that could be an issue for some of you. But, not bad knives, and they are titanium frame locks. So to me, hey, a titanium frame lock for just a little over $100 or even at $100, that's pretty good. Okay, but let's call our general rule for a decent titanium frame lock $200, because now you're getting M390. The Viper Fortis is another good example at this price point. There are a few other Kaisers out there. So yeah, good titanium frame lock. If you look at $200, you're pretty good. Now, what about the next step up? And this is where I'm going to fail, guys. I don't have a good example, so I don't know. Let's pull the Hinderer in here. He's going to be in for another purpose later on, but for now, the Hinderer will be our example because there are a lot of ZTs that are based on Hinderers. So let's go with that. If you're looking for a ZT, right? You guys know what 220, 240, 280. Okay, so they're going to be around that $250 ballpark. 7 Ready below mentioned the Spidey Chef, and I think it probably lands around the $250 ballpark, $250 mark. There are a few nicer ones that are going to go a little bit higher than that, but at $250, you should be able to. Yep, perfect. 801, good example. So at $250, you should be able to get a knife that has very good to excellent fit and finish. You should be into high-end materials, titanium, carbon fiber. You should be into either super steels or very nearly super steels. And at that price point, you're going to end up getting, there's a lot of Kaisers, there's a lot of Wee knives, there's a lot of ZTs, there are a lot of high-end Spydercos. Now, I'm going to mention one company. I'm not trying to pick on them at all, guys. But there are a lot of regular Benchmades that they're not titanium frame locks. They don't seem to be doing anything crazy that are over the $200 price point. And so they get a little, I don't know, Benchmade's prices are a little high to me. But Spidey Chef's around $195. So yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now you say, okay, there, at the $250 price point, you're almost like the sky's the limit. You could collect at $250 for years and never run out of models to buy, okay? But, hey, Nico, how's it going, man? Let's now take one step up from there. And I guess the Hinderer is kind of doing this for us anyway, all right? Now you say, okay, I've got some ZTs. I've tried out Wee knives. The quality's great. And I want to, where do I go from there? Well, I think probably most of you are already thinking this. Sebenza, right? I think you start moving into Sebenza territory around $400. And depending on what options you go with, you can end up with, you can start to get close to $500. Hinderers these days, you know, you're going to be landing around 425. And by the way, if you're watching, I just want you guys to appreciate the fact that Hinderers used to be insane. All right. I can remember when I first started getting into knives, you know, the actual retail price of Hinderers was no different than it is today, but people were paying like $650, $700, $800 for Hinderer knives that didn't flip as well as this one. Okay. So the fact that you can get a Hinderer or Sebenza, you know, for around that $500 price point. You can also do Riot knives, a bunch of other stuff like that, right? So there's tons of, you know, that $500 price point where you're going to get really nice, and here's what I'm going to call them. You're going to get really nice either limited production or sort of lower end mid-tech knives. And there's tons of them. You know, you can get stuff from Millet for between $400 and $500. You know, you can get ZT limited editions, the 0392, fantastic. Sebenza, Riot, Millet knives. And so if you really want, something that is absolutely, hey, Stazza23, what's going on, buddy? I'm trying to keep up with everybody, but the messages keep popping up. So back to my point, and I keep, yeah, I get sidetracked easily, so I'm going to try to stick to my notes. I'll still try to notice when you guys come on. Okay, so we're now talking about the next level of knife, where you're looking for something a little more high-end, and we're talking about Hinderer, Zero Tolerance, Sebenza, Riot, Millet, and there are a bunch of these options, sort of high-end mid-tech knives that are around that $500 price point. They can go a little bit higher. Somebody's waiting for a Steelcraft Bodega. Such an awesome knife. You know what? You'll be so impressed. I absolutely love mine. And still, pretty much every day I walk into my room, I have a knife rack sort of on the wall. I pick up the Bodega, I flip it a few times. Even if I'm not carrying it that day, I just have to sort of handle it every single day. So, now, where do we go from here? Oh, you know what? I should have brought this guy in. In all of these categories, there are some knives that sort of, you know, mess with things a little. I want this as well. Because of the modifications. We'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, something like the Formax, the Brian Ty TIE Fighter, Brian Ty and Friends TIE Fighter, those were around, you know, those were around $350, $300, and they're pretty nice knives. And we haven't really talked about a $300 knife. The Wii knives have come down, but you know, for $300, there are a few knives out there that are offering something really cool, and I think the Formax is one of those examples. Okay, let's shut that, and let's move into the last category that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so here is, of course, the Curtis F3, and this is the large, and this represents a different sort of... wow, $265 for a Formax. That's amazing. So the last category I'm going to talk about is what I'm going to call production customs. Okay, and I've mentioned this in a video a couple times before. This is sort of an area I kind of like. They're almost mid-techs, guys. And so what I mean by production custom is a custom knife like this, where this is a custom, but it is well known to, you know, what we're dealing with. You know, I mean, it's well known. It's built a good reputation. You know what you're dealing with. That's what I was trying to say a second ago. It's not, you know, some one-off build that no one's ever heard of and you aren't really sure what you're going to get. And there are a bunch of these out there, okay? Dr. Funky's not here, so I can talk about Olamic for a second. Yeah, I know. Toxic. Find something else to do with your time, buddy. So, something like this, where it's a custom, but it's a known custom, like Dave just builds these, okay? Over at Olamic, they have a few, the Wayfarer Compact, the Rainmaker, they have a couple of others. I'm I'm getting close to, I got another email recently, I'm getting close to having a mini Typhoon from Brian Nadeau, Sharp by Design. I would call all of those knives that I've just mentioned production production customs, where a custom maker is making them, but they're making a bunch of them and they make them all the time. All right. And so for these knives, and this is kind of where I check out, okay, I'm not going much beyond this, but you're probably going to land somewhere between, you know, $600 and $1,000. And I know that's a big range, but that's just what it is. Okay. So all of those different categories are going to appeal for different people for different reasons, all right? And that's just kind of the way the world works. And I know a lot of you weighed in with a certain price point where you're happy at that price point. All I'm trying to do here is say, hey, let's get an idea of, if this is your, you know, these are the list of things that you want out of a knife, then here's, you know, how much you're going to have to pay, or roughly how much you're going to have to pay. Now, I do want to bring in one knife that is on my mind because of the modifications video, but the Hinderer is a good example. Now, I know Hinderers don't flip that well, but there is something cool about Hinderers, and that is you can go on Hinderer's website, and it's actually, you know, I've got some extra hardware here. It's not expensive. I think this was like 30 bucks, and maybe these were 40 bucks, you know, and for, you know, if you wanted to really splurge and go out, you know, spend like $100 or $150, you could change out every piece of hardware, every screw, you know, every single bit of this knife could be changed out, all with hardware that you order at a reasonable price from Hinderer's website, so you know it's also going to fit your knife really well. And so that that option is kind of cool, and it kind of moves Hinderer into a slightly different category. Okay, so I'm all done with the sort of price point and what you can expect. One thing I do need to say about all of this is, of course, I'm using a friend's office and his phone's ringing right now, so perfect timing. So now that we're all done going through the list, I would like to talk just a little bit about where you might want to hold, okay? And this is something, I wish someone would answer that phone. Okay, there we go. Seriously? Okay, there we go. So the phone is finally answered. Let's go ahead and get back into this last question. So we have looked at a number of different categories. I'm going to try to get one example from each. The Curtis is, you know, what I'm going to call the custom category. This is high-end production, titanium frame lock, and finally, let's pull in the Recon one, just a standard but pretty decent production knife. Okay, so if you're just an average knife user, for probably 90% of people, I'm going to say this is where you can pretty well live. Okay, you could buy a Recon 1 and never buy another knife for years. Okay, and it's going to do most everything you would ever need to do. The only, I guess, issue with it is it might be a little big. So then, in that case, go with the American Lawman. But still, again, it's going to do everything you need for years. When you step down to that lower level, okay, down here where we're talking about the the budget knives, okay, hold on, let's bring this all the way to the front. There we go. So you get into a budget knife, a Rat Model 1, something like this steel wheel cut jack, all kinds of things from CRKT and Kershaw, and on the list could go. Those knives, they're going to last and they're going to be reasonably good. But in terms of, you know, the knives that I've seen with issues, and I've seen lots of knives with issues, and I've had, you know, I've bought like lots of knives before where you buy like 10 or 15 knives or something like that. He thinks a knife should cost 15 bucks. So in this level of knife, you can get some issues, okay? You really can. And I don't expect the same from a knife like this that I do from a knife like this. even though they're fairly close. Yeah, the Espada is a great knife. And even a knife like this, you know, I'll probably give this Para 2 to my kids. Like, it's well put together. You know, you really can't complain too much about it. So that's where, you know, I want to advocate in this last couple of minutes for spending just a little more money. Okay, so bear with me and then we'll be done with this discussion. Now, here's how I'd like to argue this. If you have just about any job, anytime you need very bad connection, it says, everyone can still hear me okay and everyone can still see the video okay. If not, no, I'm getting a really bad connection message here. So I'm going to try to finish this off quickly. So this, you know, S30V version, like 120 bucks. Well, honestly, you know, I needed work boots a few weeks ago and they had to be black. So my old ones wouldn't work because for the fire hall, we have to wear them. And, you know, I went out looking for a decent pair of work boots, and could I have gone to Walmart and bought, like, you know, the cheapest pair around? I could have, but one, they're not going to last long. Two, I'm going to be uncomfortable the whole time I'm wearing them. And three, I'm going to have to, you know, I'm going to spend more money because I'm replacing them. So I spent the $129.99 on sale from, I don't know, $165, let's say. I'm kind of guessing a little bit. And that's something that's going to last a long time, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. Now, I know there's a whole sort of debate that we could have surrounding that whole discussion. Do you pay now or pay later? But I think when we apply that to the knife world, you know, you're buying something that's going to be a useful tool that you're going to have on your person all the time, every day. To me, it makes sense to have a good one. Okay. Now, once you start getting up into stuff like this, okay, now you're talking about stuff where it's a hobby and you're interested in this. And I'm not going to go and buy $400, $500, $600 work boots, right? Just not going to happen, because to me, you know, a work boot is only doing that one thing. I pride in what kind of work boots I'm wearing. Same with, you know, hats, shirts, whatever else. But a knife, the unique thing about a knife, and I guess a watch can do the same thing, is there's a level of pride and interest that you can develop in some of these things. All right, I get firearms would be the same way. So it might be worth spending a little more. And to me, that's where these knives fit. I know that I don't need to pay whatever, $500, $400 for a tool. But there is some extra that you're getting from that money, some extra pride, some extra interest. All right, so there you go, guys. Thanks for checking in. I will try this again, hopefully in the next couple days, and do a better job than I did this time. Thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for not being too hard on me, especially if you're watching this later and not part of the group. Just keep in mind that I'm just kind of going off the seat of my pants here. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys. It was great to get to see everybody, and great to try this live thing when I had internet that would handle it. Talk to you later.